Well, everyone, they confirmed what we all could have already guessed. There's no naval encirclements in Victoria 3. This is a completely new system. It's what we've expected. So there's nothing radically surprising about this, but we are going to discuss it today on our Dev Diary discussion stream with the esteemed expert panel of experts who are definitely experts in all matters we discuss. So hi everyone, welcome. Hello. The Paradox forums are down, so they released the Dev Diary on the Victoria 3 website. In case that's causing any confusion, I posted it in the chat. You should be able to find that easily enough if you'd like to read it along in reference, although I will be showing it on the stream anyway, because that's the only visuals I have when we do these. Hello Kerberos, hello. Welcome everyone. Now, as you can see, the video that should be on Friday, well, I have to delay it a bit because it's a long, big, another project, and I don't have any videos to release, you know, any side videos to release like I've done in the past for big videos, to give me an extra week to work on the bigger one, so I just have to delay it a bit. I know I've created this expectation that I release a video every week, and it has been very stressful at times to actually keep that. But I've managed it. I know everyone understands, but also since I have been releasing a video every week, I need to go out of my way to tell everyone if I'm not in fact releasing a video this week. So when I do say I'm not releasing one, it's not really to complain or anything, it's just to let everyone know because it's going away from my normal schedule. So it's quite important. Right. Obviously Mr. Bolton's here, by the way. Of course he's here. He's been here for the last 2 streams anyway. But now he's here from the beginning of this one. Right, let's go. Let's get the different music on. Let me just test if this is working. Alright, hold on a sec. Let me just get this working before I go. I'm muted on there, by the way. You can see everyone popping up. Right, that's it, okay. Alright, proper background music. Alright, that's the Dev Diary. Let's go and introduce the guests.
Point I don't believe that
Alright, I'm back. Here's my esteemed panel of amazing experts and guests. Right, we're joined by the very regular Zombie.
Hello. What up?
Always here. And Mr. Bolton, the naval expert.
Hello. Sorry, I was cut out.
That's alright. The author of the Victoria 2 Naval Guide, which I haven't linked it anywhere because this isn't YouTube, I don't have a description. But if there was, I would link it. He wrote the book on this subject, the Naval Guide. And anyway, oh, this is an awkward silence. You can respond, Bolton. You can talk about your Naval Guide.
It's well, halfway outdated. I know much more now than I did when I wrote it.
It's like the naval equivalent of the nursery and economic guide. It's like not really a guide,
Yeah.
it's just a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need an update, man. We need an update. We also need a different page for all the different mods, like Igor, PUIR.
No, the modders can do it themselves.
Anyway, I'm joined by a new guest. First time. Hello, the Red King 247. Hello.
Hello! If you don't know who I am the owner of a Victoria 2 community by the name of the Royal Institute of Map Staring, or RIMS for short.
Yes. And I played one campaign there, a legendary campaign. I was Scandinavia, and I streamed it on Twitch with the American Council here and my constant fights with Ninja Bushido and the Dual Monarchy there.
That was a campaign, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially due to certain individuals, which we shall not name.
I only have fond memories of that campaign. And you know why? Because I have repressed every other memory of it. So deep. And I was playing as Scandinavia in that campaign. One of the big DoD naval powers. So here we are talking about Dev Diary number 24, Navies and Admirals in Victoria 3. Okay. I normally start by asking Zombie. Isn't it normally Zombie who starts us off? You get that impression?
You know, I'm the only one regular here now, so it makes sense, I suppose.
Sadly, my co-host Pie Chucker has been very busy in the last few weeks, but he'll be back. And Nurse Reno's gone from the community again. Who else did we normally have? Asquith doesn't really want to do it, which is fine. And yeah.
So how are we gonna do this? Are we gonna start like from the top, or just go into like general concepts instead?
I think I try to structure it in some way normally. When it never does have a structure. I normally say we'll talk about it generally and then go down the diary, looking at different points. So I'll just say that. In general, start us off, Zombie.
Yeah, so, well, I guess you could say generally this system, in my opinion anyway, actually does look, well, just to start with, a lot better than the land one. For one, you actually have more options. Look at that. You have intercept, patrol, convoy raiding, naval invasion, and then blockading. They say, well, they will add that later. Maybe DLC, who knows? Ooh. But anyway, even without blockade, it's still actually more options than land warfare. This is like kind of a dig at land warfare as well. Because I actually think the system probably has more interesting stuff in it than land warfare that we've been shown so far. But if we compare this to the Vic2 system, I actually do think that it has the potential to be a lot better. For one, while this system doesn't actually allow micro, which is unfortunate, naval micro in Victoria 2 were, well, if you played it, you probably know how kind of pointless a lot of it is. You can do some cool maneuvers, and I've done that before. But I think overall this system...
For example, Encirclements.
Well, if you actually want some legitimate maneuvers, I got a lot.
We can talk about it later, but overall...
Yeah, overall, I think it looks promising, considering that navies and Paros games usually suck, and this might actually be a change for once.
So, yeah, first thing, overall, this is something I expected and anticipated. Something like this. It's not a surprise at all. Anything in here, really.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And, well, some of it's been alluded to in past Dev Diaries. And also, it is stuff that has been done before by Paradox. They've done similar things in Hearts of Iron. So, they're taking stuff they've done and they know. Yeah, Red King, what do you think?
That was what a lot of people expected, to be honest, when coming into Victoria 3, was that they would take a lot of different systems from Hearts of Iron 4 and put them into Victoria 3. But, I mean, the problem is, Victoria is not Hearts of Iron. If you don't know, I'm supposed to be here as the devil's advocate, and I just kind of want to say here that, if you mind me getting my general point here,
go ahead.
Is just that I do generally agree with the rest of the people on this panel that maybe a micro-focused side of things, especially with the land warfare side of things, where you have optional macro strategic scale stuff to do with, like in Hoi 4, where you have fronts, but you can also move the units around individually. I do agree that might be a better system. The issue here is I really don't like the whole doomerism of oh no, Victoria 3 is ruined because we don't have unit micro. and it's just more that I think that this system that we have still here right now, even if it may not be as good as it could have been with Hoi 4, or a Hoi 4 style, like, micro and macro scale, it's still gonna be good, and it might not. Especially, I mean, I know we're talking from like an MP perspective here, because you being able to move your units around the map is such a huge part of player expression, and it was
Yeah.
one of the hugest bits of Victoria 2 multiplayer. But I still think
sorry.
there's.
I
I just
just
want
want
to.
before, just quickly, when you mention yourself being the devil's advocate, you're talking also more about last week's stuff, the military. So you also have a lot to say on that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Yeah.
Just to finish this up real quick, basically, I still think there's going to be plenty of player expression when it comes to. You're still deciding the strategic parts of the warfare going on, and even beyond that, the whole diplomatic play system, whatnot, is really interesting in a way to express. Allow player expression without necessarily microing units. In any case, back to navies here real quick. Um, yeah, I think this system is a lot better. And if anyone else would like to take over here,
It has the potential to be. Mr. Bolton, you haven't spoken yet, so
Yeah.
go.
The closing remarks, I guess.
Opening remarks.
Opening remarks and the closing remarks. Yeah, what's the difference? We'll say the same thing. Anyway,
Oh, actually,
right.
that's a good point. Let's not have closing remarks today. I'm just going to kick you out of the channel.
Good.
Just so we don't repeat. Right, go on.
Yeah, right. So the system in this dev diary, they gave us a lot more information about the naval trade, the trading, the overseas trade, and we now have the information that every good that is overseas to your capital will get transported. You'll need to have convoys to actually transport it. If you don't have enough convoys, not all the goods will get transported. It's a good thing. It appears that instead of sea provinces, which no longer exist, there are now sea nodes, supply networks they're called. And they are the most, I guess, identifiable would be the EU4 trade nodes, but you don't have land trade nodes, only sea. So
Well, you
the
never
goods
know.
will.
They might have land trading stuff too.
They did mention, actually, if I may quickly comment, they did mention that. Well, they imply that if you border someone or adjacent to someone who's in a different market, you actually gain access to that part of the market. So, presumably, you only need to use sea routes if it's actually beneficial, like it's overseas or it's a better, it's fast, it's more efficient than just using the infrastructure.
I
Presumably.
think mentioning EU4 to compare is actually really interesting. And of course, if you're on the Paradox Victoria 3 Discord and you're talking in the Victoria 3 channel and you start bringing in valid comparisons, a bit of EU4 here, you're going to get booted out of the channel and muted for talking about off-topic stuff. But here, we'll make valid comparisons. EU4, now, I think that is... And that's a game that started off with pure just, the same as Victoria 2, you move ships on provinces on the sea. But they incorporated more missions, I think, later. And I actually like, to be honest, I don't like EU4 that much, but I like that stuff, frankly. With you can automate your navies a bit. While still having potential
really
full
automation.
micro control.
It's not really automation, more like it's a task to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember them all exactly. I just remember the trade node one where the trade ships move around. But can you not set them to blockade and patrol automatically?
Yeah, you can set them to blockade and patrol.
You can set them to blockade, but it's a different thing.
You could do that in fucking EU3, actually. Like, you had a blockade
Really?
button.
Oh.
Yeah, you had a blockade.
Wait, no, you had a split off for blockade button.
Yes.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Well,
Just
I
like on the
mean,
land
to
where
be
you split off for
fair,
a
it's
siege.
also in Victoria.
No, it's
But
you have to
blockade is an
doesn't have a
actual
button
mission
for
in
it, but it can
EU4
do
where
it.
you assign it to a node and force it to actually blockade all the provinces along that node.
But
So
yeah, overall, I mean, you could see it in EU4 the direction they went by adding more automation, and then the Hearts of Iron. This is the direction they were going, and I'm fine with them updating and changing loads of this stuff and incorporating this. When people were talking about, this stuff in Victoria 2 needs to be updated and changed, it was so bad. this is somewhere where I can completely agree and actually not have a big problem. It's just that the army stuff, they completely overhauled, brand new, massively different system they've never done before, which I don't like.
If I may continue on that, actually, if you look, you actually can set your navies to intercept around certain strategic regions, friendly coastlines, or between specific lanes, right? That actually gives you a lot more maneuverability. Because remember, on land warfare, right? We talked about last, you have one front, and you can only have two options, technically three options, but basically two options when you're fighting, which attack or defend on one big front, unless you're fighting multiple countries, right? So in this situation, you can actually choose where to go indirectly, because you can choose which strategic regions, friendly coastline you want to keep under your control. Kind of like, isn't it like Hoi 4? I haven't really played much Hoi 4, but I heard that like you can basically decide what regions you want to like do missions with the navies.
Yeah,
and
they're
stuff.
big, massive naval regions. Like, I don't know what size they are. How many are there? There's like 7 of them in the Mediterranean.
I don't
East,
like.
west.
But my point is, it looks similar to that, kind of, right? Which kind of baffles me, because they could actually have done something similar with land warfare, but they didn't. Like, you had to choose where you want to maneuver units on the front and stuff, like where you want to concentrate. They've done that with navies, presumably, but I just don't really understand why they didn't do
I
with
can
land warfare.
try and explain what they're doing. Is they've taken the time period and the theme, and they're trying to theme it around navies being a bigger part of the game than even land armies, because of the time period in the British Empire and all this.
Could be.
If I may interject, they didn't do the same thing with armies. If they wished, they would have done it to the
I
navies
know it's
too.
nonsense what they're doing,
Yeah.
because World War I happened in this time period. But anyway,
Yeah. What I mean is, if they wished, they would have done it with navies too. But I mean just two buttons: attack or defend. But they can't, because you don't have a front
Yeah.
on the sea. That's why they have to
Add more shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my point is, this might actually be the first Paradox game where navies actually has more like interaction, and it's a better system than land warfare. Because usually,
if we exclude Stellaris,
I mean,
that always has to be the case.
That's not navies. It's like,
but that's like
those are ships out in
space-
space.
space fleets. But
You use them to blockade and intercept.
I mean,
Yeah,
isn't that the main mode of warfare? Because you're fighting on different planets. And
Yeah,
stuff?
it is the
Yes.
main mode of warfare,
So-
but there's also ground combat.
The ground combat's probably more in depth than Victoria 3 stuff, though. Even if it's just
No. There is no defend button. There's only attack. So the
Only
Victoria
attack.
3
Yeah.
Oh.
So
But-
we were talking. Well, we just mentioned the different orders you can move your navies to. So I'll just go over it. Intercept looks for navies. I mean, hostile navies around. It's kind of difficult to understand because they mean a land strategic region.
It's the terminology is okay. So it's very weird terminology, because they're saying this land strategic, the land strategic region's coastline. So if you assign the admiral to like North France, then that will presumably be like the English Channel.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Right.
set it to the Alps, it might crash the game. Hope they
Yeah,
fix
I don't
that.
know. Like, I don't understand. I think the reason they did it is because so that you can't send your admirals too much away from the port, I suppose. But it seems like a really weird solution to that. They could have just made
I think you maybe misunderstand. Okay, let me put it into another example. You have a naval invasion, right?
Mhm.
Which you choose a strategic region and you send a fleet to that. An intercept is basically a counter to that. You set your navy into a strategic region to defend it from naval invasions.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is that, from what I understand, it says a strategic region's friendly coastline. So it implies that it's tied to the land strategic region, not the naval one.
Yes, obviously.
So it's for invasions.
Yeah.
It's defending against invasions.
Yeah.
On
It
your
seems
coastline.
like I just don't see why you shouldn't be able to have your navy parked in North France and then be able to naval invade somewhere that isn't connected to that, or intercept where that it isn't specifically connected to a strategic region. It seems to imply you can only do it if you have a sea province connected to a strategic region, which might not always be the case. Like if you want to intercept in the Irish Sea, that may not be connected to any strategic region if you're France, Like
Well, I
Then you
mean,
can't. It says friendly.
because then if you don't have a friendly strategic region, you can't be invaded there.
No, I'm talking about intercept. Intercept. It says.
Well, that's it.
That's what we're saying, Zombie. The intercept is for enemy naval invasions on your coastline.
I thought it's just like generally to kill navies, like an attack.
No, they mentioned in the dev diary, there is no look out for enemies button because they don't want you to actually fight, only
I'll go down
accomplish
to where it
goals.
says that.
That
They
sounds-
mentioned it was a. They said it would be a search and destroy, like Call of Duty 4 mission. Where's that?
But it's not in the list though.
No,
I
they
think
mentioned
it's-
how they were gonna have it and they didn't. I don't know where that is.
That sounds like
Someone
a
find the bit where
really
they mention search and destroy.
weird idea. That sounds. Honestly,
Come on.
that just made me hate the system
There
a lot
it is.
more.
Seek out and destroy enemy forces. I'll just read
Yeah,
it
hold on.
before we. Right, was this at the last bit? The lack of an order to seek out and destroy enemy forces. Blah, blah. They're given strategic objectives. Wait, what are we talking about here? What is this? If in the process we did have an order to seek and destroy, the optimal choice would then be to assign this order only to the strongest commander, fight the eventual battle, then revoke this order. That's like a Victoria 2 late game Great War, right? They fight one battle and then whoever wins that has dominance.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that would even necessarily be the case if you have the detection chances. Like in Hoi, you can. In Hoi, for example, you can. Well, Hoi 3 anyway, your navy isn't going to be instantly detected if you're in the same sea tile. It's not guaranteed. So, I just don't see. It seems like a really weird decision to not have that because, like, they talk about sort of strategic like reasons to do it, right? But what if my strategic reason is to kill the enemy navy? What about that? I guess I can't do that.
Red King, do you have
Killing the enemy navy accomplishes nothing strategically.
I guess I can't
what,
kill enemy
what do you,
navy.
now, let Red King speak. What do you think?
I will kind of say that I do think. I mean, this is. They are just right in the fact that if you did have a seek and destroy order, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happens in Victoria 2 multiplayer, for instance. In late game wars, exactly as Spud said.
Best admiral.
And
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's not entirely unrealistic here that you're focusing on specific strategic objectives rather than, again, trying to destroy enemy forces, because that's what most navies would probably end up be doing most of the time, rather than like World War II was a weird case where there were periods where navies would go out specifically to try and strike other navies.
Pretty
but
much
even
just in the
those-
Pacific, right? Just in the Pacific war,
Just
really.
as in the Pacific, yeah, really.
But that's out of the scope. We can talk about World War One, where I guess they are
Exactly,
using
that's
World
the
War One
point,
as their
where-
theory. Yeah.
I mean, there is, I guess, the whole Battle of Jutland and whatnot, but even then,
God,
that
that was
was
a
two
disaster.
forces. Yeah, exactly. That just kind of ran into each other.
It was a blockade, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, my issue with this is that, in my opinion, you should be able to do it because they say that it would create some micro, right? And I mean, okay, fair enough. But in this situation, if they have a decent enough naval system, you should not instantly get detected as soon as you enter a sea province, like in Vic 2. One of the things in Vic 2 I actually don't like with navies is that when you have one ship in a sea tile, that's it. You've closed down the entire sea tile.
Oh yeah,
right?
and in the Battle of Jutland in World War One, there was a lot of detection issues. They couldn't find each other half the time.
Exactly. So what should make sense is you can choose search and destroy, but you might not always find the enemy navy unless you detect them.
Search and destroy.
You might not. So that's how it works in Hoi 2, as far as I know. Like you can send your navy out to intercept the enemy navy, not just intercept in terms of the naval invasion, but intercept the enemy navy in general. Right? And you try to intercept the enemy navy, and then if you don't find them, well,
I'm sure there's going to be
like,
some kind of detection system with this as well, even without the.
I'm assuming
destroy
so.
feature, just 'cause
Yeah.
There's going to be battles.
How
They
else do
haven't indicated what it'll be like when the navies
But
actually do fight.
But I would guess that if two navies have the same intercept mission, they would intercept each other, right? You would actually have a naval battle, in theory, as from what I understand. Now, my problem there is, if that's the case, right? Why can't you do it outside of your strategic region's coastline? Like, what if I want to intercept the navy in like Ireland?
Someone said it. The Russo-Japanese War, naval strategic destroy the enemy navy. That's it. That's the one we were missing.
I don't know much about that part of history, but I do know that it should be in my interest sometimes to kill the enemy navy. I mean, come on.
I mean,
guys.
even with the Russo-Japanese War, that's not
Come on.
necessarily true. I mean, it's just more that the Russian Navy went around to try and intercept the Japanese Navy, which was supplying the Japanese troops in Korea and Manchuria.
They sent it all the way around the world, even around that. They didn't.
You know what? That might actually be outside the strategic region, Russia. You can't do that.
No, they went out. They weren't allowed to go through the Suez Canal, or were their ships too big or something? What happened there? Does anyone know about the Russo-Japanese War on the panel? We need a historian.
Well, they couldn't get through the Suez Canal because, if I remember correctly, Britain wasn't allowing them at the time because Japan was an ally.
Oh, they were allies. Yeah. So they went all the way around Africa. There was even a point they were going across. It's like modern day, you know. They were going past the English Channel and they almost ended up firing on British ships, or vice versa. Something like that happened, and then they went all the way around the world and got absolutely destroyed by the Japanese.
The Baltic Fleet story is hilarious because they actually stopped in Madagascar. They got stopped in Madagascar for a couple of months because they were trying to like refuel basically, and someone decided to do like a firing mission just to like practice gunnery. They didn't ever hit any targets, and they wasted like half their ammunition.
Enough with that. I mean, I just guess my point is,
anyways,
you should be able to search and destroy. Okay.
I do agree. I mean, like what we were talking about here is I see where they're coming from, but I mean it's a game. It's a game where you have wars and stuff. Come on, let us blow up each other's navies, basically.
I mean, it's not like the Navy is ever outside of port unless on a mission.
But that's fine. Like let's say you have it's like in Hawaii where you can set your navy on like strike force, intercept or something, and says it only goes out when it needs to do a specific thing. That's fine. You can intercept all day. You're not gonna find the enemy navy. But what I don't like is if the intercept button is only to catch enemy naval invasions and nothing else, like you suggested, right? That's what I don't like. I think it should be like a general purpose.
That's what it is. I think they've completely said that. What we were talking about would be the search and destroy mission that they considered and did not put in for the reasons that we just said.
And search and destroy could overlap with intercept. Like let's say search and destroy finds an invading navy, like an invasion force, right? You would intercept that as well. So just kind of be both in one sort of.
Well, it would kind of be useless then. Again, Zombie, I'll have to remind you. You don't move navies. You just set a region, or I guess a node, for them to work in.
I'm aware. I'm all aware of that. I'm just saying, like from that perspective, like when you quote unquote move it by telling the admirals to move in, do a mission, is what I mean by moving it, right? Is that when you quote unquote move it in, you select like a mission, you should have a choice between, either like search and destroy or whatever, and then intercept, or just combine both if you want it. Like,
I'm afraid I don't think that would be a positive addition.
Why not? Exactly. Why not?
It overlaps too much with the other mission and doesn't.
Well, that's why I say combine them, because it's basically the same thing in real. Like, if you're putting an intercept on like your coastline, it's clearly because you want to catch a naval invasion. If you're putting intercept on their territories because you want to catch their navies, right? So like, but it might not have like the depth for that in this system.
Patrol is like a defensive
if you want to prevent the enemy navies from leaving, I believe blockade should be enough. That if you want that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I assume.
Well, that would be then, like,
because they don't have that in there. That's why I'm talking about this. Like, they said they don't have that in, and I'm always a little bit skeptical of Paradox when they say they don't have stuff in if it's going to be DLC or something. But
we need to mention how. I'll let you.
It did say, well, we might not made it into the game yet. We do want to add a fifth order, so they are going to add it.
They will.
I hope
they'll add loads of stuff.
Although
they'll add DLC as well.
Yeah. Well, they do say that it's for disable enemy ports and preventing hostile force from crossing straits. So I don't know if disable enemy ports would include trapping the navy, because
if it doesn't,
they are in a port, but
like
with the whole like you're not actually moving like navies and stuff. How would that work? I don't know. I mean, all you can do is speculate. But like,
we need to mention again. We need to point out every image in this is another artistic mock-up. There aren't any even gameplay screenshots in this. It's more that these are made in like Photoshop. So
there is no VAP, so they're like it's an early draft.
Yeah, it is an early draft.
So again, just more.
The image you see is literally fake. It was created in a lab.
So actually, if we really think about it, if we think about it in this binary way, where intercept and patrol is the direct counter to naval invasion and convoy raiding, then there really only are two options, because one of them is like just a defensive version of the other one, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. Now that I think about it more, because I didn't think that it was just like a binary system with those two like different defense and offense thing. It sounds kind of meh. Like if they used the Hearts of Iron-esque system instead, that still was like strategic in that like you can't actually move move navies around. I think it would have been
no. You can move navies in Hoi 4. They just don't do much in that mode.
Oh yeah.
But they don't do much when they're moving around individually. But you can use that.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives you that interaction where you can move your navy, see it moving. even though it doesn't do anything in that state, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
I like to see them moving.
But I'm saying even if they remove that one part and then moved in the Hoi system, I'd still think it would be better because they would have more like would actually be able to like use intercept orders. That's not just to counter naval invasions.
This is a Hoi 4 extremely light, like Hoi 4 light but really light system, like that, but with like 90% less of the stuff. Really.
Hopefully, the blockade order can actually serve that function because we have to see in that, right?
Yeah. So right now, this is a dev diary called what's it called? Navies and Admirals, and one of the key things is, much like their military land system, this is based on admirals in navies. So
yeah,
same stuff. Like we introduce, you get a pool of them to get with your mana or your bureaucracy or whatever it is.
They didn't specify, so it could be diplo points. You may never know.
I would assume it is actually a different capacity. I should call them like they are from the land ones, because they normally do that.
No, it
it's
should be
hard to say really, but I'm assuming because they didn't mention it, I'm assuming it's going to be symmetrical, so that it's just like kind of in Vic 2 where it's the same source you get them from, generals and admirals. But I mean, they didn't say it, so it's just a theory from me. But that's just a theory. As for the actual, I guess we talk about the supply system, right? The supply network thing.
We were talking about admirals. Was there anything else to say about them? Red King.
Yeah. Is there anything to say about them? Is this the same as generals? But
I will say in general, in talking about talking about both generals and admirals, I do actually really like how leader focused Victoria 3 is being here, because I mean that just makes sense when you abstract micromanagement of units down to a leader level. You want to focus more specifically on the leaders. So I really hope that the leader system gets more expanded, either now or later in DLC. Not that I want DLC, but
yeah, they've you're gonna get them whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And so they outlined last week how the generals are sort of like characters. They do more than just manage your armies. They have political aspirations and stuff, and what are they called? Focus groups that they're part of, or interest groups. Yeah. Focus group. What's that? That's just a fucking marketing thing. Interest groups. I wonder if they did a focus group for Victoria. I mean, what? Maybe to find out.
Well, they almost certainly did. That's why there is no micro.
Yeah, I mean, the combined Victoria 2 hours on any Paradox focus group must be like 20.
Probably,
yeah.
No.
Well, then again, I mean, at the same time, Victoria 2 is actually way more popular of a game than you think it is. It consistently has at least 2,000 players on Steam, that was better than Imperator Rome, like, on release.
Well, to be fair, you couldn't really play Imperator Rome that much.
I think you're actually incorrect. It's not Imperator on release. It was that Imperator released, it was, it had its time, and then it declined, and then it reached a point where, Victoria 2 was rising, Imperator was declining, and then it reached a point where Victoria, like a line on a graph, it overtook Imperator for a while. Yeah. Now Imperator is gone. It's over.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It's so sad. Like they still had potential to fix the game, but
Victoria 2 has just stood the test of time, I guess.
Yeah.
Keeps getting close.
Well, I mean, the thing about Victoria 2 that's so awesome, and why I'm actually really looking forward to Victoria 3 is, again, that it's not just, a conquest simulator like U4. It's not just or Hoi 4. It's not just map painting. It's specifically about the economics and politics of the day, and that is what Victoria 3 is going out all out on, and is looking very, very good.
That's all well and good, but it's to the detriment of warfare completely. They're removing warfare in a big way to make way for more political and economic stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that, to be honest. But I do think all the political stuff is good. Like, don't get me wrong. I think if that wasn't Victoria, it would be a good thing. But I don't know if it's worth actually moving all this other shit.
I think what they're concerned about is just the amount of, how do I put this? Like the amount of time you spend doing any given system, like economics, politics, and war. They were concerned that when a war is happening, it takes up 90% of your attention, and to the detriment of the rest of your country. Now, yeah, that's their rationale for...
Especially going on Victoria 2. I mean,
Yeah.
especially because, Victoria 2 has no automation features whatsoever. And so the micro of your units, man, I wish Reno was here because he'd be able to agree with me, but as someone who hosts and GMs Victoria 2 games at the same time, well, I mean, Zombie, you would probably might understand this too.
I will, depending
It's
on what
just
you
doing all of that on top of making sure that the game is fun, while also trying to run a country, especially in military times when your micro is insane, is, just too much to handle. I mean, it's a unique situation being a host and GM, but even then, even without it, I've played games, obviously, where I'm not the host or the GM.
That's why you need a Reno system where he's Liechtenstein.
Yeah. It's funny because I used to not like that
That's
idea.
the reason Reno uses Liechtenstein, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was dumb, but then I realized that you're not even gonna be able to GM the game effectively if you're playing a major. Not because you're biased necessarily, but that can also be a factor. But because you have to do so much shit, that you're not gonna be able to keep track of rule breaks and all that. So I do think that some reasons for it.
Yeah, but to narrow it back down to Paradox and Victoria 3, so they were concerned that the war, when it happens, takes up way too much of your time. So they've removed the micromanagement of war. Then it led to me coming up with the sort of stupid comment where I imagine I'm micromanaging a factory in a province. So I'm clicking this and clicking that, changing my production method, and then suddenly the menu disappears because that province has suddenly been occupied in a war you forgot about 20 minutes ago, and the buildings are gone. Now I think that might happen a lot in Victoria 3.
If you think about it, remember they moved the game to 4 ticks a day, right? So it could actually be a move to that sort of not downgrade, but increase, because to increase the amount of ticks in the game to get more depth and everything else. And then they probably thought okay, if players actually have to micro the warfare, we have to speed it up because playing on 2 speed or 3 speed is gonna take forever when you have 4 ticks a day. If you get what I mean, right? Be more like Hoist 0 speed than Big 2 speed.
Yeah.
That could also be a factor. Just trying to get people to use 5 speed more often, I guess.
Right, to make even more of my points on this, right? So what I would have preferred to the way they did the military system would be if they create better ways of solving that unbalance of the time spent when a war's happening. Just add some automation stuff like EU4 or Hearts of Iron, but they went the big, I don't know how to describe it, they just completely removed everything. I know they didn't really, there's still some stuff to do, but their approach was to just remove micromanagement instead of coming up with ways that could have mitigated the problem, instead of just taking it, ruining it, in my opinion.
I've actually mentioned that quite a few times, and the common counter argument seems to be that, well, if you allow any sort of micromanagement to happen, then that immediately creates a meta where you have to micro it as an ally for Hoi 4 or something, right? But whilst that may be true, I still think it's a superior system as well, in my opinion, because if, let's say you play Hoi 4, right, you probably won't micro the entire front, but you'll micro certain parts of it that are important enough to warrant your microing it. Let's say you're trying to set up an encirclement, you manual control, and if someone's trying to attack in the south, I should have gone a manual micro, it's not to get encircled. I don't play much Hoi, but I'm assuming that's kind of how it will work unless you're super good at micro. And having something like that in Vic 2 would be nice as well. So you could sort of let's say you put less important fronts on the AI control, and then the important
Zombie, how you couldn't be more wrong. The micro in Hoi 4 is so important.
I know that.
Two people in the same country to micro it.
I'm just saying, if you're occupying colonies, right? If you have a front occupying colonies,
but Mr. Bolton, this is where you're completely right. But I have to come in here. Zombie. Yeah. Mr. Bolton, you're saying the micro is important in Hoi 4 in multiplayer, but in single player, where everyone's talking about Victoria 3, all the people on the Discord, all the noobs who don't understand the joy of multiplayer, they all play single player. In Hoi 4 single player, you can just manage the fronts and stuff that way, and it would be the same in a Victoria system. Let the multiplayer people sort out the micromanaging, and let the single player people...
So to play Victoria 3 multiplayer, we just have to co-op, find the person who'll do the economic and politics and the other...
Not that much. Really, I don't know. But I mean, if they make a good multiplayer system, then you could do that. You could have toolboxes and co-ops and crap.
I mean, you already have that in Hawaii, don't you? So it's like
yeah, and it
kind
works.
of,
It's stable
yeah.
enough,
Yeah, kind of.
relatively.
I mean, I don't know if co-ops necessarily are unstable in Vic2. It's just that Vic2 MP in general is unstable. Like just as a
Have we ever played with the co-op?
Instability of Vic2. God.
I don't think I've ever seen
have.
someone. I've seen someone play it a few times. It didn't seem to have much of an effect on stability. But I mean,
there was one time where in a Munch game, Nurse Reno co-opted Spain with, I want to say, XDA, and it was funny as hell. Yeah, there you go. It happened. I've seen it, and it actually worked. But if one person on a country leaves the game, it gets replaced by AI. So you're co-oping with AI.
I've seen that. I actually saw that happen
before.
once.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. Like even if you put on no AI, sometimes it happens. I remember once put on no AI, it's still like still fuck shit up. Like I don't even know. But anyway, I guess my point is just like it just seems like taking it away doesn't seem right. I agree with Spud is what I'm trying to say. I guess automation would have been better in my opinion.
Well, the thing is, to play devil advocate again here. Again, the overall grand vision for Victoria is not a warfare simulator. Like, fundamentally, I do agree with you guys that implementing a more in-depth war system where you can micro units is, would have been better. But at the same time, I also can't fault the Victoria 3 devs for not including it because, again, the whole point of Victoria is not to be a war simulator; it's to be a politics and economics simulator.
I want to have a counterpoint to
diplomacy
that
as a
because I would actually argue that in Victoria 2 and Victoria in general, I would say that like diplomacy, military, and economy should all take up about a third of the game each, in my opinion. That's how I interpret it, right? In Victoria 2, that's the case. Do some military, do some economy, do some diplomacy, right? At least multiplayer. In single player, probably do much diplomacy, obviously, but I feel like, and that's like how the Victoria 2 player base has sort of interpreted. Well, most of them, at least Spud and I, have seen it, right? The multiplayer and stuff. So like when you're moving to Victoria 3, it seems like it would be more like 1% war, 49% diplomacy, 49% economy, which is a drastic move. I think, like,
add in politics.
And politics too, yeah. I would kind of I suppose you could put that into a separate category, but I guess you could just say like domestic stuff and then like military, which like Victoria 2 wasn't really a war game. I would definitely not say it's a war game, but war is a thing in the game, even though it's even if it's a minor thing in the game.
The problem is, I mean, with Victoria 2, base game single player Victoria 2, yeah, it's definitely not that much of a war game, but as soon as you start getting into multiplayer, there's literally a war like every 5 years.
I can say that in Victoria 3 multiplayer, it's going to be a war game too, just a war game of building factories so you can annex your opponent with that. I'm just going to say that, like, in multiplayer, the winning condition is always just to have a bigger army or better diplomacy with people who have bigger armies, right? So if you can't control the army yourself, the meta will just move further down the road and say, okay, now I just got to build the best artillery factories and stuff and the best navy. And then, I don't have to have military skill now. I just have to click a button and I win and I take New York from the USA or something.
There is still going. I mean, going back to like some of the other like dev diaries here, though, like there is like the whole. I realize that with the land armies, there's only like attack and defend. But that's on like a general per general basis. So you're still going to be commanding specific generals to do specific tasks and have to figure out which you do. You're still going to have to decide army composition and other things. It's not just, click here, win the game. It's still you still have strategic decisions that you have to make. It's just not as intensive and micro focused as, Victoria 2 or the Hearts of Iron is.
Kind of, but with what they've said so far, unless they change it, there's only going to be like one front per country. So while you can actually assign different generals to attack and defend, it doesn't really matter because let's say I have a front with Germany, right, as France. So if I have 5 generals on the Alsace or the German front, what does it mean if I set 3 of my generals to attack and 2 to defend? Like what does it actually mean? Like what am I doing? Like it's kind of hard to visualize what you're actually doing. Like like, okay, I can, like, let's say you could split your fronts, which is something they did say they would consider, but
All
they
that comes
didn't
to my
do.
mind is that stupid screenshot of the Mexican-Texas war in the last Dev Diary. That's all they've got.
Yes. So I would just say that if the entire country is one front, you can't have depth, because if you could have several fronts, like in Hoi 4 at least, you could say, okay, I want to push on this front, defend on this front, or pin them on this front, etc., etc. Even if you aren't commanding the units directly, you can just give commands to what you should do strategically. But I just don't see that much strategic gameplay in this system, besides, like, do you want to attack against this country or defend against this country? Not with the entire country being one front. Well, anyway, that's what I think. I think they should have had different fronts at the very least, because it decides where you can push.
We need to go a bit back on topic to the current Dev Diary. I think we've covered most of it, but there's one thing we need to. I think we need to talk more about the supply and moving goods around and the naval invasions as well. I think.
Yeah.
But wait, before I do that, I need to give me 1 minute. I'm going to mute myself and say something to my stream quickly. All right, chat. We've only had one sub so far. I need to advertise, subscribe, and support. And remember, if you have a comment or a question about Victoria 3 or anything, it'll come up and I will answer it at the end without the guests. So remember that. And also, the video on Friday is going to be a bit delayed because it's a huge workload. So it'll be a day or two later, maybe more. Maybe a week delay at the most. We've only had one sub so far. It's devastating. Right, let's go back. Okay, I'm back. Any thoughts?
You shill.
I need to put food on the table.
Well, that's a good thing you talk about food on the table, because the Navy will deliver it to you.
Yeah,
one day.
Perfect.
So
they will, if I want to get my canned food, it will be delivered by a Navy or
there is
convoys.
no canned food.
Convoys.
There are groceries.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Groceries. True.
I do wonder how they're gonna handle naval invasions, because the thing is, like, naval invasions on a mass scale didn't really happen until D-Day, World War II. I mean, there were, like, obviously, you get a bunch of guys and put them on a ship and bring them out of a ship.
The Crimean War, for one, okay? Let me tell, there was like, how many troops involved in that? 40,000 in the Allied side? Something like that? Something in the region of 40,000.
More like 60?
Let me Google it. That's too complex to Google. That wouldn't just come up on the Wikipedia box.
Just Google Crimean War and see the amount of participants.
No, someone else. I need a researcher to do that. I'm
okay. Siege of Sevastopol. That should be enough.
No, it's not, because that's the siege after the landing. How many men did they move in the first landing? They just went on a beach. They just sat around on a beach.
I mean, doesn't that make sense? Because I'm assuming, like, before World War I and World War II, you didn't have like the armies to actually defend the coastline, like with the D-Day and stuff. So
actually,
I don't know.
Well, I guess
no, they didn't.
The important point to mention would be that the armies didn't land on the beaches; they landed in ports.
No, the first landing in the Crimean War, no. They landed an army on the coastline somewhere on a beach, rounded them up, and then tried to take Sevastopol. Or they fought the Battle of the Alma first, something like that. People are saying 50 to 60,000 in the Crimean War. So listen, that was a big naval invasion. And it's also been cited as a disaster because of the supply issues and the disease, which is something they're mentioning in Victoria 3, the cost of war.
So yeah, you land your 60,000, then the yellow fever instantly kills like 2/3 of that.
Yeah, that's it.
Good question would be though, if you land in a naval invasion, will it be the same front as the other front with the country? Like, let's say I'm playing France.
No. I can tell you it's not. It's a new front, right?
If it's disconnected, it is a new front.
Because I read, I didn't see them. Let me look if I can find that, because I just didn't see them write that anywhere, so I was confused. Wait. Hopefully this new front though, that would be bad if it wasn't.
Where's the naval invasion? It's mentioned, a naval invasion. I remember it. What it says.
It's lower down.
To establish a beachhead and a front line on enemy soil by escorting and protecting a general's land forces in a joint operation.
It establishes a general's front line in the landing zone. Where is it?
Naval invasion order. Provide naval support. You had it.
There it is. That's it.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of implied, but I do hope that it's going to be a separate, like, front, because that'll be weird.
Until it links up with another front. So if you invade, you can do encirclements if you land, like say.
Oh.
Remember, like the Dutch front in a Great War, for example.
Oh yeah, you can do encirclements on the strategic regions, I guess.
It's
Isn't
not
that
going
the
to
way
work like
land
that at all, though. It's going to be shit. And then as
Yeah,
soon as you
probably,
link up
but
with your
who
main
knows?
front, it's just going to become the same front.
Well-
I would like to remind you that armies don't exist in physical space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard thinking about such an abstract like thing, like when it's not actually
The armies
like
are
the
assigned to the front. So if you encircle some portion of land, the armies are no longer there. They're on the front.
Yeah, like unless they have some kind of well, I guess that's going to landfall warfare again, so let's not do that too much. But unless they implement some sort of system to actually know where each individual units are, you probably can't really represent encirclements. But
No, not
Right.
really. Now, someone's asking if they specify where you put the naval invasion. This paragraph is the only detail on naval invasions in the dev diary.
Yeah,
So there's really no.
I'm assuming it's going to be in a strategic region though, because that's what they mentioned before with other stuff.
Yeah, it's a general. So this is a naval invasion is a general and an admiral. The admiral puts the navy there to guide the invasion, and the general is the one with the men leading it on the ground. So, no, there's really not much to say on it. Can't really speculate either.
Right.
Yeah, but with the supplies though, I think that's
We can talk about the
to say,
supplies.
because
Yeah, the most important part of this
it's
whole
like the most
operation.
important part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
from what I understand it, and I'll just sum up real quick what I understand it is, you have like these sea nodes, right? Someone I spoke to compared it to Total War, but I don't know how Total War actually works, so I can't speak too much on that. But you have these sea nodes, which are kind of like sea provinces where supplies pass through which convoys. Convoys are produced quote unquote, and consumed in ports to send supplies and goods overseas. So as you can use what's the convoy raiding mission or whatever to actually block these off. And now here's where I think it depends on, like, you have to like speculate a bit, because like I think how it's gonna work is when you put your shit in the on the sea tile, the node, right? They explain it's gonna give a penalty. So I think the best way to actually visualize this is like the overseas penalty from or the overseas maintenance from Victoria 2, just like with a bit more focus, and you can actually disrupt it. So for anyone that doesn't know, in Victoria 2, for each province you have overseas, you incur a cost in steamer convoys and clipper convoys that you have to pay each day. If you can't pay them or you can't get the goods, you get a penalty to all overseas RTO production. This seems basically to be an extension of that, but instead of being like, empire-wide, there's no way to actually blockade it away, you can actually influence it now. So if you put a convoy rating on one of these nodes, then you actually give a penalty to that individual, like trade route. So all the goods that pass through that, all the goods you're importing, you get a penalty from, presumably. All the supplies sending overseas would also get a penalty, presumably. It's just important to know, because like I initially thought when reading this that it was actually like Hoi 3, where you have actual supplies passing over a period of time. But no, it's just sort of I guess I call it like a teleportation line, I think. So yeah, if you put a ship there with that mission, then it reduced the efficiency of that line. So that's kind of my summarization of it.
We were thinking about, just before the stream, Empire Total War, which is trade nodes. Like there's like a West African place. There's no cities or land or anything, and then there's just these circles where you put your ships in, and then they make money. And there's lines, then they send it back to your home country. So it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the goods transport around the world and supplies overseas to your armies transport around the world.
All in one day.
We don't
Instantly.
know that. It might be.
Yeah.
We don't know that, really.
Well, there are no stockpiles. They have to be in one day.
Yeah, I would agree with Bolton, because there's no stockpile. It would have to be instantaneous. Otherwise, it would be really weird without stockpiles to actually get disruptions properly. That's why I said it'd be a penalty.
Oh no.
You don't have stockpiles, yeah. They mentioned that
No,
earlier.
Okay, all right.
Where did they mention it?
In trade goods.
Source.
I think it was the goods dev diary. I'm pretty.
We can't check the source because
didn't read
it's
that one.
down. The site is down. I did it.
It might be on this site, but I can't be arsed looking. Well, so what were we going to say? Actually, I was going to make this point, right? So, before Victoria 3 was announced, occasionally it would come up the discussion. Oh, imagine if they made Vic3. this is one of the areas I always cited that they can improve on, which is having goods move around instead of just being in a cloud, teleporting around. I mean, you're saying they're still teleporting, but I mean,
They're
still
teleporting on a
lines
path.
on a
Yeah.
path, yeah, and you can block them and interact. And
Yeah, you can actually blockade the teleportation of goods. Does that make instead of Victoria 2 where you can't, kind of?
And also in Victoria 2, and we also mentioned, I also like to say you could embargo countries. So in Victoria 2, there's just one global market that's always open. Even if you're in a death war for 10 years with your arch nemesis, you're still trading with them all the time. Getting the goods, giving them your goods, you know? It's always open.
Yep. It's definitely an improvement. Like, I will say, it's a huge improvement over Victoria 2 in terms of the trading, I will say. I'm just saying that I was just disappointed a little bit that it wasn't like Hoi 3, and it's probably just going to be a penalty modifier to the amount of goods you get.
I don't even know what it was like in Hoi 3.
In Hoi 3, it was just like your actual goods were supplied. Like, it actually took time to travel, and it actually like came incrementally. That's how it kind of worked. So,
Hoi 3 was overly complicated. Explaining
yeah, so
everything
that was
would be
just one part that was overly complicated.
too much time.
But
I think they should have Hoi 3's military system in this damn game, to be honest.
Agreed.
Yeah, you know, just to spite the people who are talking about the too much micro, we put even more micro. Such
You
that
never know
even,
more.
even five people together can't micro.
But I
If
think
there
so
is
that's-
one thing that would be strategic, it would be managing supplies. So yeah,
That is
there
true.
That's
there
strategic.
should be a
Well,
supply.
they are talking about managing supplies as one of the big features of the army.
Well, you don't actually manage supply from what it seems. You just
You make
manage
sure
the
you-
production of goods
You make
so
sure you
that there
have
are
the
supplies.
supplies.
Yeah.
Is there any confirmation of what the next dev diary will be talking about?
It
says
was
at
about
the
the
bottom.
cost of war.
To be honest, I don't think I'm going to do a whole stream for it. I think since things are not so controversial, interesting, we'll go back to maybe having them less frequently, discussing more than one dev diary at a time.
It also just doesn't sound that interesting because in Victoria 2 you also have costs of war, so you can kind of guess what it's going to be, sort of, if that makes sense.
I mean, the cost of war and Victoria 2 are so low that you can fight a total war and then come out.
I mean,
fighting.
depends.
No,
but
no, I
I
think
know
they're
what
big.
we can all imagine. Well, I mean, it's
It
just crank up a
depends.
number. I mean,
War exhaustion can be devastating, or it can't be. Depends on how
Yeah.
well you've managed your country, or whether
I mean,
you're on
unless
the
you're
precipice of
death
falling to
warring.
rebels.
They might talk about supplies in there though, because obviously supplies are a massive cost of war.
could be.
Yeah.
But the reason I just wanted to reiterate, the reason I brought up the Hoi 3 comparison because there's a big deal because what I'm saying is it will probably just be a percentage modifier to your goods gain or troops goods transport. Whereas in Hoi 3, it was like actual physical goods you lost if the convoy got blown up, is what I'm saying. So
Isn't that the same difference mathematically?
well, not always, because what I'm assuming it's going to be is if you put a navy on convoy rating in a certain node, then they'll probably do like, oh, we'll calculate the efficiency of the navy, and it'll just there won't be any battles like really sinking convoys. It'll just detract some convoys and give them like minus 15% supply throughput in this specific sea tile, right?
It's not
which is still throughput. You know what I mean, right? Like there's going to be less. You're going to lose. It's going to be less efficient. You're not going to get all the goods. There's going to be percentage like modifiers, from what I understand, which is still a lot better than Victoria 2 system, mind you. So I do commend them for doing this because
This is the convoy percentages, convoy rating thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I can find it, but
efficiency. Yeah, I was actually a bit surprised that they went for something this basic in what they said when they're trying to make a more complex system.
Yeah.
Works
I
fine.
still think it is better than Victoria
Honestly,
2's naval system.
And
to
this
be honest,
probably isn't final because nothing. This is so unfinished. They don't have any images of it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Victoria 3 is not slated until release, at least until spring of next year, maybe even later, so...
Spring of next year isn't that far away.
It's like at most
6 months.
6 months?
4 months. Spring.
Well,
March.
There's a lot of
spring
dev time.
can mean May.
Depends. But I heard that rumor about the
be
date being in March.
I wouldn't be surprised if it also gets delayed
You
later.
mean the
just
Nvidia?
I mean, like,
we talked
COVID
about
and all
it last week. Oh no, there's no. They're back in their office. Paradox. They're back
they
in their
actually are back to
offices.
full productivity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
Not that there was there. Really, do you really get a lack of productivity? I suppose you do at home, because even in this more, this isn't exactly a factory.
Well,
Where you
yeah,
have to
you
be there.
do get.
Mm.
I know, like Valve has been
the
working on
Paradox Plaza forum is up.
Fantastic. I
Fantastic.
can't be bothered going to the dev responses and stuff though. I think a lot
There is no dev diary, so don't worry.
yeah.
They just fucked it up, I
There's
guess.
no time to wait around for them to do the responses and comments.
Yeah.
We'll mention it in the next discussion, which might be in a week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wish.
Yeah,
that
it is
they,
slowing down a little bit,
so-
and it would be probably be a good idea not to do one of these until
Yeah,
we get a
and
bigger
I'm
scope
not getting.
of the
I've had
war
one
system.
resub the whole stream, whereas like the last two streams I've been getting bits and loads of sub. This is over. I mean, damn, I'm getting no support.
Well, I mean, the last
you
stream
will
was the most controversial ever.
yeah.
Right.
Good reason.
So
It's
yeah,
kind of sad though because
Whereas, how many people care about Navy?
I
yeah,
do.
nobody
Me and,
cares.
it's just me and Bolton. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of sad though because like even with both the naval and land dev there, there's so many things we don't know. Like there's so many black
Right.
holes and I'm thinking they're not going to do any more dev dives about land and naval warfare directly. This is it. Like now they're moving on to the cost of war, not even like bothering
Yeah.
to.
Well,
Maybe
it's
it's not
just
all
I'm sure they'll come back to it eventually once they got a system more nailed down.
Hopefully, but who knows? It seems like they're going with a tradition, just one dev diary per concept or whatever so far. Maybe they'll change that.
We want
But-
fucking gameplay. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on these. There's no reason to. But yeah, we want gameplay. Give
Yeah.
us the
There
damn
is no gameplay.
They
I mean,
have a
there's
gameplay. They talked
screenshots,
about how
isn't
that guy did a playthrough on Korea,
Yeah, how exactly? I don't know.
and in the Discord, a developer was giving a
He
chat.
did an abstraction report.
How can you play a game when you only have artistic mock-ups to play with? How can you only play?
I don't know. You know how you get those memes where you're on Photoshop and you move the items around and change their size to move them? That's what he was doing. Like
Yeah.
taking a ship and just like moving it along the screen on Photoshop. Oh, my ship is moving here. Oh, that's the
you draw the
Victoria
map
free playthrough.
yourself. Draw the map.
Where is? Oh, artistic mock-up. Okay.
Yeah, like
I
they
was
had
just wondering
artistic
where that
mock
came
last
from.
week as well.
This is all artistic mock-ups and not that actual.
No. The work in progress is the actual screenshot.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. We need
It's
to.
the early drafts
yeah.
that are.
So this one is
mock-ups.
real.
I mean, it's too bad there's nothing in it. That's worth looking.
There's like
Well, you see
two
this tiny
settlements
blue line.
aligned. This is off
It-
Angola. So there's the main route going down the African coast, and then a little route going into the port on Angola.
I don't think it's the main one. I think it's connection between C nodes.
I'm looking at a map. It's off the coast. I don't know. Is it too far off the coast? I don't know. Is it not the main route down Africa? Looks like it. The
Yeah,
main
it
node,
is.
the node, whatever you call it.
But I mean the blue dotted line is the node connections, and the connections to the node from the ports is the trade routes.
Too much speculation. It's time to stop because we're just speculating and there's nothing much to go on.
Right.
Very true.
Any closing statements, Mr. Bolton?
I already said everything I wanted in the in the opening statements. So yeah, it looked good. Looks good. I want to know more. I want to know how naval combat works. What are the numbers? Tell me.
Give us a
Tell me the
battle.
numbers.
What are the battles?
Yeah.
Anything zombie? Anything to add?
I would say, I mean, the base of the system looks good enough, but I think, as I already said, they should add like proper like, search and destroy missions and actually like flesh out the actual combat system. Like all supply shit is good and stuff, but they actually need to have a proper combat system, you know?
Yeah, and just before I go to the Red King, I must point out, look, we are not just endless doomers. We give them credit and positivity where it's due. Don't we, guys? Look,
Say so.
Oh, I
we
certainly
were
do.
positive on this one, really.
There was positive. Yeah.
Mostly
that-
positive, yeah.
I would
That's
say,
fun.
overall...
I noticed you didn't do the prediction.
What's the prediction?
Would would the panel like the dev diary? You did it on the last one.
Did I ask, do you like this dev diary last time? Or what do you mean?
No, there was a prediction, the Twitch prediction.
Oh, I didn't do that. That was a mod in the chat.
It's
Which
a
is good,
gambling thing.
I know. I just didn't do it myself. So a mod did it in my chat. Yeah. Not this time though. I just didn't get one. We didn't. Right, any final closing thoughts, Red King?
I would say that I'm still very much hyped for this game, and I will say that I do think this system, even if, I might agree a little bit with Zombie that some more options for a Navy would be better, but it's still a better system than Victorious 2's Navy, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's good to hear from someone who is actually hyped for the game, because we are in the most doomer community, the multiplayer community. So it's hard to even comprehend people could say they are hyped for it, where I come from, because everyone's a doomer. But people are hyped for it, I suppose, and they're all, I don't know. Most of them are out in the.
I think it's really
Victoria Free
interesting when
Discord.
it comes to the multiplayer community, because there's two kinds of players when it comes to the multiplayer community. You have your more competitive focused players who, clearly want to like win the game basically and want to do better over others. And there's more of I guess another type of player where it's more like cooperative, to say
Yeah,
is a better way of describing it, where they just want
in the
a fun
multiplayer
game.
in general, even in multiplayer, our type of player, me and the games I play in, are even a minority in the multiplayer community as well, probably. We're a minority within a minority of Victoria 2's player base. But we know what we're doing.
It depends. I would say most people who are probably more focused on single player would be more of a cooperative kind of player, but
No,
they
but
don't
even
really
in
multiplayer.
entry-level multiplayer, people just
That's
play
true.
with a friend or two. They play a co-op and help each other kill AI, which is
Yeah,
all very
there's-
well. But we know we have our big multiplayer games, which we think are the best possible way to play the game. After that, you can't go back.
Yeah, the factory built on the War Maker. The different.
But
effects.
anyway, look, that's it. We will. Thanks so much, the three of you, and maybe we'll do another one in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe get a fifth or a sixth, and hopefully have my co-host back by that time. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, see you, man.
See it.
Yeah.
I'll answer all my
Thank you
many
for having me on.
questions on my personal segment, answering all the many questions I have. Right, see you guys.
Yeah.
See it.
Okay, right. So I didn't really. There's absolutely no questions regarding Victoria 3 from any of the comments or donations or subs. So Calamari, thank you for the 6 months, and Ash Caperdon, thank you so much for the 2 months. And I want to get back into a multiplayer stream at some point, maybe on Saturday, okay? Because I've had a break from streaming Victoria multiplayer, but it's time to get back into it. It's time to do one. I was hoping for some kind of casual one-off game from the chill server, but they aren't delivering. There's no World War II or World War One. So, I'll see if I can do a stream on Saturday. Remember, the video will be delayed a bit. Kerberos, you got any ideas why they made all the provinces? Yeah, that's one of my big questions and problems. Like, why did they add loads more provinces into the map than Victoria 2, but they're not doing anything with them? And I'll go even more back. And what I was thinking when I first heard them announce they had loads more provinces, I was immediately skeptical. They can't keep the same war system if they're adding more provinces, because that's just going to make it even more complicated for all the people who are demanding less micro. So I could already see it going. It was ominous when I first heard about it. But we're going to call it here. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the viewership, always appreciated. Didn't have so much subs or anything this stream, but that's fine. We'll have to take streams like this, and we'll get back to the good ones later. Probably the next time I do a multiplayer, they'll all come back. So thanks, Remus and Kerberos, everyone else here. I will see you. Maybe a stream on Saturday. Maybe I'll say that. See you later.